Greetings and salutations. My name is Willie Cooper, and I'm excited that you're able to join my YouTube channel this evening, where we're going to explicitly talk about 4 innovative leadership theories that we're asked to discuss this week in this YouTube video. We're going to go through this process and really talk through, at a very high level, about these theories, the importance of these theories, and how these theories can help us become better leaders. As I mentioned in several of our posts throughout the semester, everything rises and falls on leadership. And what we are trying to do as students or as the practitioners of this particular field is really understand these theories so that these theories can help us become better individuals in leading our organizations, and of course, more importantly, in grooming leaders within our organization to be more effective based on the goals and objectives that we're asked to do as leaders. So I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. Now, we're going to focus on 4 theories that we were asked to talk about. Those 4 theories are the contingency theory. We're going to go to then the continuum theory, then the path goal leadership theory, and then we're going to close it with the leadership substitute theory. So let's move right along and let's talk about the first theory. That first theory is the contingency theory. Now, the contingency theory, I love this theory, states that your leadership effectiveness as a leader is determined by how well your leadership style matches the situation you find yourself in. So think about it. So this theory states this, that the best leadership style will be contingent on the situation that you find yourself in. So if you are a principal, if you are a CEO of a technology company and your style is X, based on that situation will determine the best factor of leadership style that you have. Now, with this model, there are 2 things that you need to determine. First is, what is your leadership style? Okay. And then second is what is called the situational favorableness, if you will, of the process. Now, the leadership style is based on a scale that looks at what is called the LPC, which is the least preferred coworker. Now, to score yourself on the scale, you have to identify the coworker with whom you are at least preferred to work. Secondly, the more favorable you rate that person you least prefer to work with, then the more relationship oriented you are in your leadership style. Okay. Now, the least favorable you rate the person you least like to work with the more you will then become what is called the more task-oriented leadership style in your process. So again, those 2 favorable styles will help you understand exactly where you are, whether you are more relationship-oriented or whether you are more task-oriented. Now, the favorableness of the situation is determined by 3 factors. That is the lead member's relationship. This measures how much your team trusts you. Task structures. This measures the tasks that they're being performed or that they're performing for you. And then, of course, the position of power. And this determines by what is your authority, the power that you have to reward or the power that you have to punish your subordinates. So that takes care of the high level of the contingency theory. Now, let's transition to the continuum leadership model. Now, this shows the relationship between the level of authority you use as a leader and the freedom. Now, this model is used to determine which one of the 7 types to select based on the use of the boss-centered versus the subordinate-centered leadership. Now, before we select the 7 leadership styles, you really have to understand as a leader, you must understand or consider 3 variables. Now, the author talks about the boss variable, which is basically the leader's personality and the behavior preferred style of the leader. The second one was the subordinates, which is the follower's preferred style for the leader, is based on a personality and behavior and with the leader. And then last but not least, you have what is called the situation factor. And these are the environmental concerns or the environmental considerations that a leader must focus on. The size of the organization, the goals, the technologies, and the structure. Now, those 7 styles in some of my additional research were 7 areas. One talks about tells. The second talks about sells, and the third talks about suggests. And these are considered what is called a manager-centered style. The next one was the fourth one, which is considered consults. and that's considered as a blended style, which is a little different characteristic than we found in the textbook. But then we had the styles 5, 6, and 7, 5 being joins, 6 being delegates, and then of course 7 being advocates, are talking about the subordinate centered type of leadership. So again, factors that we have to take in consideration of when we're looking at this particular leadership theory, the Continuum Leadership Theory. Now, some of the advantages of this theory, this theory gives you the many ways to involve and interact with your team. It also gives allows you the ability to do a lot of great experimentation through this process. Some of the disadvantages of this particular leadership theory, is it ignores self factors, and then it only examines the process of giving a task to your team. But at the end of the day, this continuum leadership makes a lot of sense, and it has a lot of what I would call effective features or components to it. Our next one is what is called the path goal leadership model. Now, the path goal leadership model is used to select the leadership style appropriate to the situation to maximize, watch this, both performance and job satisfaction. So according to this theory, the leader's responsibility is to increase subordinates' motivation to attain personal and organizational goals. Now, this theory is called a contingency theory because it embodies a plethora of contingencies, things like leadership styles, followers and situations that we've learned about, and rewards to meet the follower's needs. Now, the leader increases followers' motivation by either first clarifying the follower's path to rewards that are available. Now, on increasing these rewards that the follower values or basically desires, what is called the path clarification, which means that the leaders work with subordinates to help them identify and to learn the behaviors that will be successful tasks and accomplish those behaviors which will accomplish organizational rewards. Now, in addition to that, there are two situational factors that are associated with this model. And those factors are the subordinate factor. And when you look at the subordinate factor really hones in on the authoritarian approach to this particular task, the locus of control, which we learned about in the previous chapter, and of course the ability to walk things through the particular process. Then we also talk about the environment. The environment is associated with the task structure. It's associated also with formal authority. And then last but not least, again, the work group associated with this model is very important as well. So that kind of gives us the ability and understanding the path goal leadership model. Last but not least, we'll look at the leadership substitutes. Now, sometimes there are many circumstances that we understand that render leadership irrelevant. Leadership substitutes are individual tasks or organizational tasks that sometimes outweighs the leadership's ability to affect subordinate satisfaction and no performance. Now, unlike the other theories, which assumes that there's a hierarchical leadership in one form or another, which is always important, the premise of the leadership substitute is that the leader's behavior may be irrelevant in some situation. And an individual ability, the experience, the training, the knowledge, the motivation, the professional orientation are among the circumstances that may be substitute for the leader, or maybe substitute for leadership. Now, in some cases, if the task gives the subordinate enough intrinsic satisfaction, she or he may not even need the support of a leader. And so that's what the author and what the text was really talking about, how some of these how this subordinate leadership style could be considered something that could be a substitute that where organizations may not effectively need a leader. But there's been a lot of research behind this, and there's been some research that's provided support for this concept of leadership. However, I feel that there definitely needs to be additional research that is needed to identify the particular substitutes and their impact on the actual leadership effectiveness. So in a nutshell, those are the four theories. I really thank you for joining us this evening. and thanking you for, again, listening to some of the concepts at a very high level on, again, those 4 innovative leadership theories. Once again, we have the opportunity today to, one, talk about, again, the contingency theory, the continuum theory, the pathfical leadership theory, and, of course, the leadership substitute theory. Thank you very much. Continue to look at the world of leadership and the world of leadership theories. And at the end of the day, everything rises and falls on leadership. And always remember this: leadership is important for all organizations. Thank you and have a great day.